I used to have everything. A big house where everything was taken care of by my loyal companion, an older lady who had been with me for as long as I could remember. My days were filled with comfort, with no worries about money or work. I had a chauffeur who drove me wherever I wanted, a pantry filled with good food, and every luxury one could desire. But then something terrible happened. One day, without warning, the older lady passed away. No one came to visit us, and we were all alone when it happened. I found her lifeless body in the house, and the shock of her sudden departure filled me with sorrow and fear. I was left on my own, surrounded by memories of our life together. The house, once warm and welcoming, now felt cold and strange. It was as if her absence had cast a dark shadow over everything. I tried to carry on as I always had, but it was never the same. The house felt different, and every room seemed haunted by memories of her. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, I found myself struggling to survive. The isolation became unbearable, and the comforts I had once enjoyed felt empty and meaningless. I began to search for food, but I couldn't find any that I could access. One day, as hunger consumed me, I ventured into the room where the older lady had spent her final moments. The scent of her presence still lingered, and I knew what I had to do. With hesitant steps, I approached her lifeless body. It was a difficult decision, one that I never could have imagined making. I hesitated for a moment, but the desperate hunger inside me urged me forward. I took a bite. The taste was strange and unsettling, a reminder of the desperate situation I had found myself in. But it was all I had to survive, and it kept me going. I continued to eat, driven by the instinct to stay alive, even as guilt and disgust overwhelmed me. In the following weeks, I became a mere shadow of my former self. I kept returning to the lifeless body, unable to escape the cycle of survival that had consumed me. Each time I felt a mixture of revulsion and desperation, but it was the only way to keep going. As I scavenged for any available food, my initial guilt began to gnaw at me less and less. The first few bites had filled me with revulsion, but with each subsequent meal, my survival instinct overpowered any remnants of morality. The lifeless body became my source of sustenance, and I couldn't afford to let my guilt stand in the way. Time passed, and as I returned to the skeletal remains of my friend, there was little left to devour. I had stripped away every last morsel of sustenance, leaving only a lifeless form behind. My guilt had been replaced by a cold, unfeeling determination to survive at any cost. And yet, something unexpected happened. As my constant hunger led me to consume even the smallest scraps of flesh that clung to the bones, I began to think that it didn't taste all that bad. At least, it was something to fill my empty stomach, a respite from the gnawing hunger that had tormented me for so long. My existence had become a gruesome testament to the darkest corners of survival. I was trapped in a relentless cycle, a prisoner of my own instincts. The room that once held cherished memories had transformed into a chamber of dread. As I continued to scavenge for sustenance, I discovered that my senses had sharpened, honed by the unforgiving necessity of survival. I could hear the faintest rustle of rodents in the walls, and my eyes could pierce the deepest shadows in search of prey. It was during one of these hunts that I encountered a rodent, a creature far removed from the sumptuous feasts of my former life. But in that moment, it was a lifeline, a source of sustenance that I couldn't ignore. The chase was a desperate one, a flurry of paws and whiskers in the dimly lit room. When I finally caught the small creature, my hunger overcame any lingering hesitation. I devoured it with the same ruthless determination that had driven me to consume the remains of my friend. It was a taste of the wild, a return to the primal instincts that had long been suppressed by the comforts of my pampered life. And as I swallowed the last morsel of that rodent, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I was no longer bound by the horrors of the past, by the guilt that had gnawed at me for so long. It was only after a long while that I managed to escape from the house. I had found a cracked window, and with all my strength, I broke through it. Freedom awaited me on the other side, though it was a harsh and unforgiving world. As I ventured into the outside world, people noticed me. They called me stray, lonely, and feral, as if they could sense the darkness that had consumed me. But little did they know the true nature of my existence. At that moment, I realized that I had become something entirely different from the pampered pet I'd once been. I was a survivor, a creature shaped by the unforgiving hand of fate. As I ventured deeper into the darkness of my new existence, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets and challenges awaited me in this harsh, unforgiving world. After all, I was no ordinary survivor. I was a creature of the night, with furry paws and keen instincts, forever changed by the ordeal I endured. In the end, I had become not just a stray, but a stray with a story unlike any other.